tell us who you are and what your connection is to this topic.
My name is Abigail Megginson. I've been working on this trial and covering it since March. I've known about Kent Hovind for quite some time. I used to go to his Dinosaur Adventureland as a young kid, but covering this trial has been really interesting so far.
And your educational background?
Well, I just graduated high school, and I just received my AA from Pensicola State College as of this May.
And did you go to a classical public school, or?
I did not. I was homeschooled for most of my education, which was cool.
And is your family religious?
I would say instead of religious, say more faithful, like a faith-based thing. We're Christians, and we're proud of it, so.
And is the term Christian homeschooling, does that make any sense?
Definitely. My mom always educated us in a Christian light, always kind of working that into our education.
Were you homeschooled because the schools aren't so hot in Escambia County, or were you homeschooled because of the opportunity for more spiritual education?
It was both of it. It was because my mom and, well, both of my parents wanted me and my siblings, I have a brother and a sister, I'm the oldest. They wanted us to have a better education, but they also wanted us to grow up in a good environment, but they still socialized us, so that was nice.
You're a young Christian in Pensicola.
Yes, I am.
And you've been following and observing and reporting on the trial of an older creationist who, at least the bulk of his supporters, believe that he was chosen to be persecuted, in this case, by the federal government. Do you buy that?
I don't think it was his faith that I don't think he was persecuted for his faith. I think it was because of the issues with the tax and the mail fraud, and I don't think it was religion whatsoever.
And as a person who has a faith-based upbringing, do you have any opinions about the outcry over religious persecution?
I find it interesting because the Bible it talks about in Romans 13, it's 1 through 6, it talks about that God instituted the authority and we are to obey that to avoid punishment. They are there to uphold the law and to punish the evildoers. And when you go against that, it's like you're rebelling against God. And that's what the Bible says, and that's what I look for when I'm looking for answers.
Explain that to me more. What does that verse have to do with Kent Hovind, the trial, his supporters? Can you just break it down a little bit?
Well, when you're talking about not paying your taxes, when you're talking about going against the government, God instituted that government. And unless it's impeding on your Christian values and what God has specifically, asked us to do, as Christians, we really aren't supposed to go against that biblically. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So you're familiar with PCC, Pensacola
Yes.
Christian College, and the high school that they also administer. Is that correct?
Pensacola Christian Academy.
And you have a basic notion from being a journalist and a high school and college student of sometimes the forces that are at play in Pensacola. Is the church a powerful institution here? Does Pensacola Christian College factor into the story of Kent Hovind, in your opinion?
I think so. I think they do. I think that anytime you have Pensacola has so many churches. They play a huge part in the community, putting on things. If someone comes into town, a lot of times they'll perform in the churches as opposed to the civic centers sometimes, the Bay Center it is now. And I think you can look at the background of Kent Hovind and what Pensacola Christian College had to do with them, and they had a bit of a rift. Pensacola Christian College has always been very do things this way, it has to be done a certain way, and Kent Hovind did not do things the way they would have done them, and I think they felt like they were associated with him and they didn't like that, so I think there's a bit of a conflict there.
What's the biggest takeaway lesson for you in covering this trial and listening to people talk about Kent Hovind, in all the discussions that you've helped facilitate in these last few weeks? What have you learned that you perhaps had not thought about beforehand?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned is something can seem something on the surface, but once you start researching, seeing what really happened, you can get a better grasp on what the truth is. And something that may seem like a lot of people may believe that the government is persecuting Kent Hovind for his religious beliefs, but when you talk to people that know him, when you get the whole story, you can see that there's more to it than that, and there's another reason.
And what do you think of the or the Free Kent Hovind movement, at least as expressed in the blogosphere and in social media? Have you been surprised? Has it gone as you expected?
I know they're very passionate about what they believe. They believe what they believe, and that's great. And they're 100% for it. They're not this way or that way. And the Bible says you should either be cold or hot and not lukewarm. So I do admire that about them. But I think that they may not always have the correct information, may jump the gun a little bit, which is human. But I did expect them to be more excited about this, to be more like, thank goodness
More excited about what?
About the acquittal of Kent Hovind. I thought they'd be pleased, just like jumping, really excited. And I found that they're just kind of finding someone else to blame or someone else to hate, which is disappointing after everything that they've pushed for this.
Disappointing as a person or disappointing as a Christian?
I think disappointing, kind of both. As a person, I am a Christian. That's who I am. And that's kind of sad to me. Yeah.
When you talk about your involvement in covering this trial and the aftermath, do your friends know what you're talking about? Do the young people of Pensacola know about Dr. Dino and his trials and tribulations?
They don't unless they have been following it. It's been 8 years. It's been a long time, and I'll say, do you remember Dinosaur Adventureland? And sometimes people say, yeah, I remember that place, but they kind of don't know what happened. It's kind of like a ghost town over there. And there's no memory. There's a memory, but there's nothing current that people don't think about it. It's not like a current issue.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's it for me.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.